Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in today's video, we are going to do a live demonstration, or I would say a live troubleshooting of an application which we are going to deploy on Azure Kubernetes Service. Just imagine you have deployed your application on AKS and everything seems fine, but suddenly what happened? It doesn't work. Then maybe the reason could be, or maybe your pods keeps getting restarted due to crash loop back of error, or maybe your service shows up but there are no endpoints, or maybe your app is stuck in not ready state due to health check failure, or maybe your application, or you can't access your application with public IP or DNS name. So all those issues basically we are going to cover as part of today demonstration. So first what we will do, we will understand each of the issues, what it is and why it is occur. So the very first issue we generally face is called crash loop back off issue. So basically crash loop back off issue is a common issue in Kubernetes where a pod repeatedly crashes and restarts. So basically it attempt to restart every time but it crash. So what Kubernetes does, basically it will wait for few times or few minutes or few seconds, or I would say a few some longer times, and if the pod does not come up or it does not start, then it went to a crash loop back off state. So there is, what is the full form of crash loop back off? So basically there are three terms involved in this particular issue. The very first is crash. It, what does it mean? Basically your container exists with a non-zero state. Second is loop. So every time Kubernetes try to restart it again and again, but it doesn't start. Third term is back off. So Kubernetes wait increasingly longer between each restart attempts. So this is the basically meaning of this particular terms crash loop back off issue. And why it is occur? It could be your bad entry point or the command which you have specified in your deployment.ml file, or the script that have some issues, or incorrect configurations or environment variables, or maybe a dependency failure. Your app wants to connect to database but DB is not reachable from your pod. Or another region could be your health probes like liveness and readiness probe is misconfigured. And last is resource limit. Maybe your pod is running out of resources, maybe out of memory, or maybe out of CPU. So all those, due to all those regions, generally we show crash loop back off issue in Kubernetes. Now the another issue is service with no endpoints. The service which you have created or deployed exists, but it has no ports backing it. It means there are no endpoints available for routing the traffic. Because whenever we create a service, that service basically point to a pod, so it can route the traffic to the pod where our actual application is running. So that could be the reason. So why this particular service with no endpoints occur? So suppose when you configured or your ML file or the service.ml file, maybe you have misconfigured the label, the app label, the selector basically you have misconfigured, or there are some configurations issue in your selector, like the deployment.ml file and service.ml file, the selector value doesn't match. So how the service will know where it needs to route the traffic? Another region or the another issue is readiness probe failure. So basically readiness probe failure in Kubernetes means that your container is not ready to receive the traffic. That's why the readiness, you will see a readiness probe failure error. इसके the regions could be wrong path or port, app crashes or restart, authentication or network issue, or misconfigured probe. So these could be the regions when you see a readiness probe failures. Another is no public access. What does it mean? The service type you have not configured correctly. Maybe you want to access your application from the internet and you have configured the service type as load balancer, sorry, a cluster IP instead of load balancer. In that case, you cannot access your application from the public URL. So we are going to cover all the four basically issues which we have discussed as part of this slide. So let me go back to my Azure portal. So what we are going to do, we are going to create a Azure Kubernetes cluster here, and we are going to deploy a nginx application on that. So let me quickly create a Kubernetes cluster. So I'll choose my resource group here, cluster preset configuration, tab and test is fine. Cluster name, I'll give any name here. I don't want any availability zone. Rest all the fields, I will keep it default. Now I will change the setting for node pools because I don't want 2 to 5 node counts. So here what I will do, I'll choose scale method manual and I'll keep it here 1 to save the cost. And even I don't want any availability zone. Let me choose a size as well. So here I will go for A series, which is best suited for entry level workload because this is just a demonstration. So let me select the size here. Okay, now everything I'm gonna keep default. Let me choose the subnet as well, Azure CNI node. And okay, I don't want any monitoring here. Let me uncheck this. Okay, rest everything I will leave it default. Let me hit review and create. So this Kubernetes deployment will take couple of minutes. So meantime, what I will do, I will open my deployment.ml file and I'll explain that. Okay, so here is my deployment.ml file called original. So you can see there I have intentionally made some misconfiguration on this part so we can see the actual issue which we face in real time. So the very first thing, this is the kind deployment. So we are going to deploy a nginx application. If you can see in a container, the name is nginx and we are fetching the nginx image. Now here few things you will see that I think we will cover when we do a live demo, so it will be more clear, okay, what changes we are going to make as part of the troubleshooting. So I'm not going to change anything over here. I'm just quickly explaining you this particular ML file. So here we are going to create a nginx container which we are going to deploy on AKS, and here the service we are going to create so we can access our application from the public URL. So let's quickly wait if AKS cluster deployment is in progress. So we will wait couple of minutes. Once the deployment is completed, I'll resume back and then we will deploy this particular ML file and then we will see what all the issues we have discussed as part of this presentation. We will cover one by one. Okay, so Kubernetes deployment is completed. Let me go to resources. And here I will go the option called connect. And here I will choose Azure CLI. Now let me go back to my Visual Studio. And here I will open a new terminal. So very first command I will learn here is at login to authenticate to the Azure. Okay, let me close this. Now I will download the cluster credentials so we can connect to the AKS. Okay, so we have connected to the Azure cloud. We can see all the details, tenant ID, subscription and all. Let me clear the screen. Now I will download the cluster credential on my local system. Okay, it's completed. Let me clear the screen again. So let me deploy this particular file here. Let me maximize this. So kubectl apply -f, and the file name is original. Okay, let me go to this location. So cd final. Now let me run. Okay, sorry, clear the screen. Now I will run kubectl command, kubectl apply -f and original. So you can see a deployment completed and parallelly service is also created. So now let me clear the screen again. Let me check the pod here. So we can see a error in pod. Let's wait a couple of minutes. So we will see a error called crash loop back here. Then I will explain what is the issue in the deployment.ml file which we have run. So we can see a crash loop back of error. Now let me open the file here. So if you can see in specification part, I have specified these commands. So basically what is happening, these commands basically is going to overwrite the nginx startup command. So if I'll remove the argument and commands from here, then the crash loop back of error will go on. So if I'll go back to my PPT, so bad entry point or command. So this is the issue I have intentionally configured on this particular deployment.ml file. So let me minimize this. So let me clear these two lines here. Let me remove it, command and argument, so it will not override the startup command which is specified in this nginx image. So let me save it. Now what I will do, I will clear the screen. Now I'll rerun the deployment.ml file. Okay, so service is unchained and you can see the deployment is reconfigured again. Now let me check the pods again. kubectl get pods. So you can see status of this particular pod which is in running state, but you can see the status of ready. This is 0/1. It should be 1 to 1 and status should be ready. Now let me rerun it. Okay, so still we cannot see the status ready. This is why this is happening, because of readiness probes which we have specified here. So if I'll go back to my PPT and let me go to readiness probes. So wrong path or port, app crash and restart, authentication, network issue or misconfigured probes. So basically we have specified, or I have specified intentionally a wrong path here. So if I correct the path, then we will see the pod status is ready. So what I will do again, let me rerun it. Still it's 0/1 and status is running, it's not ready. So what I will do, if you can see in readiness probe, I have specified path here /invalid. If I'll remove this particular path from here and let me save it, and what I will do, let me clear the screen. I will rerun the deployment.ml file. So now you can see the service is unchanged, but the deployment is reconfigured or redeployed basically. So now if I'll check the status of kubectl get pods, so you can see the status is 1/1 and running. Okay, so it means now the pod is running now. Okay, so now let's check the services. Okay, so we have ClusterIP services and there is no external IPs. Okay, but before that let's just check the endpoints here. Before endpoint, what we will do, this is the cluster IP service which we have configured, so we cannot get any external IP address. So let me change it to the load balancer. Sorry. Let me save it. Now what I will do, I will again run the deployment.ml file. So you can see now the deployment file is unchanged, but the service is reconfigured. So now let me clear the screen. kubectl get services. So now we can see a external IP. It means we can access this public IP address. We can access our application. Let's try that. Let me copy it. So it's not working, it's not loading. Why it's not loading? Let me go back to my Visual Studio Code. If you can see a selector here in a service type, the selector is misconfigured, because if you see here label here, we have name called nginx demo, but here I have specified nginx-demo-crash, because this particular service is not recognizing any endpoints, like it is not able to identify where it needs to route to the traffic. So let me correct it. Let me save it. So if I'll rerun it, or I will redeploy this ML file. Okay, so if I'll go back again and refresh this page, let's see if it works or not. Because if I'll search here kubectl get endpoints, so we are getting the endpoints for nginx service as well. I forgot to run the command earlier. So let me go back and reload this page. Let's check if the service IP got changed. So let me, okay, so it's 107 now. Let me copy it. Okay, so still we are not able to access our application. Let's see what goes wrong now. Sorry, the IP is 241, and what we are browsing? Okay, we are browsing the wrong IP. No, it's correct. 107 only we are browsing. Okay, so now we can see a home page of nginx application. So what we have covered here, the very first issue was crash loopback of error, because of we have specified in the container specification the commands and arguments, which was basically overriding the nginx startup command. Second issue was readiness probe, because the path was incorrect. Third issue was the public access, because the service type we have specified here ClusterIP, that's why we were not able to get the public IP address and we cannot access the application. Fourth issue was endpoint issue. So because the endpoint, the selector label was wrong, it was not matching with the label with the application pod. That's what it is. It is basically not able to route the traffic. Like if the selector value was different here, basically it was nginx-demo-crash, then this value was not matching with the application pod label, so it was not able to identify where it needs to route the traffic. So we have fixed it. So basically we have covered 4 scenarios here, like 4 issues basically we have covered as part of this particular demo. So I hope it's clear how we basically troubleshoot the issue or identify. And there are few commands which you have to run. I forget to run actually. If you run kubectl describe, and you have to put the pod name. So let me, okay, pod name I have removed. So let me get the pod, get pod, sorry, it's kubectl get pods. So now let me copy it, the pod name here, and kubectl describe and pod name. So you can see here all the details. If in case any issues you are facing, you can check the logs, or you can do a describe command. So you will get all the details as part of your application pod. So now you can see here everything seems fine, successfully assigned, container image it's already fetched, container created and started containers. That's what we are going to access our application from the public URL. So that's all for today. See you next video. Thank you so much.